It was a story we had never really heard before.
Is one big tragic fairy tale.
Something just doesn't seem right here.
And then she just said a few things that were completely strange.
She was probably not only the most hated woman in the prison, but probably the most hated woman in the world.
What did you say?
Pam and Belle naked.
What kind of position were they in?
Pam was on top of Belle.
I always thought that there's probably nothing more powerful to a 15 or 16-year-old boy than sex.
This was the greatest miscarriage of justice in American jurisprudence.
So, who do you believe?
Ini bukanlah berita biasa, namun benar-benar kisah nyata, kasus paling sensasional yang menggemparkan Amerika, dan menjadi kasus persidangan pertama kalinya disiarkan di televisi, serta masih menjadi perdebatan sampai hari ini terkait keadilan hukuman bagi para terdakwa dalam kasus perselingkuhan tragis paling sensasional Ser3T Siswa-Siswa Pelajar, yang akan kita kupas lebih dalam lagi dalam tayangan dokumenter KHAS K Channel. Selengkapnya sesaat lagi hanya di YouTube K Channel, membuka jendela dunia.
You've been incarcerated for 25 years.
Almost 26.
Almost 26. Do you think of yourself as having been rehabilitated from that 22-year-old girl that you were?
Well, I think that when I was younger, I really cared mostly about, like most people do when they're young, whatever makes me happy at the moment. But that is totally not the kind of person I am now. I worry a lot about other people's feelings, and more so than I did before. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of lies, and there's a lot of sensationalism. So those things don't help me. They hurt me. But, I mean, I've been trying to straighten things out for 26 years, just like they keep saying I'm a teacher, and I've said it 1,000 times, and I was never a teacher.
Pamela Wojcik, atau lebih dikenal dengan nama Pamela Smart, lahir di Windham, New Hampshire, Amerika Serikat. Ia adalah salah satu putri dari 3 putra-putri John Wojcik dan Linda Wojcik. Mereka tinggal di Miami, Florida. Ayahnya adalah seorang pilot, sementara ibunya seorang ibu rumah tangga. Pamela dengan panggilan Pam ini digambarkan oleh orang tuanya sebagai anak yang manis, periang, dan punya banyak teman. Pam begitu bahagia dimanjakan oleh sang ayah yang memiliki hubungan sangat dekat dengannya. Walau dimanjakan, Pam adalah anak yang mandiri.
She was always there, and when we had a problem, we didn't have to wait till she came home from work because she was home.
My husband was a pilot. Pam loved being with Dad. She's very close to him. She was very happy. She was a sweet child.
Saat Pam menginjak remaja, keluarganya pindah ke Dari, New Hampshire. Sebuah kota dengan tingkat kejahatan yang rendah dan dikenal sebagai kota yang memiliki pemandangan dan taman yang indah, serta penduduknya yang ramah. Saat tiba masuk kuliah, Pam, mantan pembantu sorak saat di SMA ini, kemudian memutuskan kembali ke Florida untuk kuliah di Florida State University atau FSU. Ia adalah mahasiswi yang cerdas dan berprestasi tinggi. Pam, yang dikenal sangat aktif, adalah penggemar berat band rock Van Halen. Ia melabeli dirinya sebagai gadis metal. Ia suka berpesta, namun ia juga bekerja keras. Ia banyak menghabiskan waktunya belajar dan bekerja sebagai DJ stasiun radio perguruan tinggi. Dan ia juga membawakan acara di 2 stasiun radio yang berbeda. Cita-citanya adalah ingin menjadi reporter berita di televisi.
When I went went to college. I worked 3 jobs, 52 hours a week, and graduated from college a year early.
Pamela Smart was an overachiever. She received a degree in communication arts, and her goal was to be a television news reporter.
My aspiration was to be a journalist and to be in the media.
She wanted to be another Barbara Walters.
I worked all the time.
Pam yang sangat aktif ini tidak pernah memiliki waktu untuk berpacaran. Hingga saat kuliah, ia bertemu cinta pertamanya, Gregory Smart.
How did you meet Greg Smart?
I met Greg when I came home for Christmas during a break one year. Originally, I wasn't attracted to him, but I then became attracted to him.
What about him?
He was very outgoing and always smiling. He seemed fun to be around.
Greg adalah penggemar musik rock. Ia berpenampilan seperti rocker dengan rambut panjangnya, serta sikapnya yang membuat Pam jatuh cinta padanya. Apalagi Greg dan Pam mempunyai minat yang sama, yakni sama-sama penggemar berat band rock Van Halen dengan lagu favorit mereka, You've Got Me. Lalu Greg pindah ke Florida, bukan karena ia tertarik kuliah, tapi ia ingin bersama Pam. Mereka menjalani hubungan serius pada Februari 1987. Lalu meresmikan hubungan mereka dalam ikatan pernikahan pada 7 Mei 1989. Mereka terlihat seperti pasangan serasi yang sangat bahagia. Pam memakai gaun cantik seperti gaun pernikahan Putri Diana. Gaun besar putih yang menjuntai.
For the very first time, Mr. and Mrs. Greg Smart.
Very beautiful one. We look forward to having grandchildren.
She said, you know, Mom, he's the one. We liked him too.
I was only 21 years old when I got married. I was very much in love with my husband.
Pasangan itu kemudian pindah ke Dari, New Hampshire. Mereka tinggal di lingkungan orang-orang kaya, di kondominium mewah yang indah. Lalu Pam mendapatkan pekerjaan sebagai konsultan media di Winnicott High School di Hampton, New Hampshire. Ia memperkenalkan siswa-siswa tentang pertelevisian, menulis siaran pers, membuat konten dan hal lainnya terkait bidang media.
I had a very good job. I made a lot of money for myself. I was 22 years old. I had a 40-something-year-old secretary.
Dan Greg juga mendapatkan pekerjaan. Ia terjun ke bisnis asuransi di perusahaan Bonafit, mengikuti ayahnya. Dan Greg terpaksa memotong pendek rambutnya karena terkait pekerjaan yang mengharuskan Greg berpenampilan sangat rapi. Penampilan rambut pendek Greg rupanya mengejutkan Pam. Ia nampak kecewa karena awal ketertarikan Pam pada Greg adalah penampilan rockernya dengan rambut panjang ala personel band rock Van Halen favoritnya. Pam merasa ia memacari seorang rocker, tapi kini dia menikahi seorang agen asuransi.
When she first met her husband, he was kind of a rocker rebel, which is why she was drawn to him. And then after marriage, segued into this very traditional role.
Berkat kerja kerasnya, Greg memiliki karir yang bagus dengan gaji yang besar. Hingga pasangan ini dapat hidup nyaman di kondominium mewah dengan perabotan mewah dan seekor anjing peliharaan yang dinamainya Helen. Greg menjadi sangat sibuk dengan pekerjaannya hingga sering pulang malam. Ia juga sering pergi keluar kota untuk perjalanan bisnisnya, hingga Pam banyak sendirian di rumah. Namun Greg telah menyiapkan rencana memberikan kejutan untuk Pam pada 1 Mei 1990, 6 hari menjelang perayaan 1 tahun pernikahannya, dengan perjalanan ke Florida sebagai hadiah ulang tahun pernikahan mereka. Dan ketika itu, Pam mulai banyak bergaul dengan siswa-siswa pelajar SMA. Mereka sering berkumpul dan jalan-jalan bersama.
Her mother later told me that during this period, it seemed like Pam finally stopped focusing on just work and became more social, but a little immaturely social. She started to hang around with the high school students when she went to work every day.
Namun pada suatu ketika Pam mengatakan bahwa ia mengetahui suaminya Greg telah berselingkuh darinya pada satu malam ketika ia tak pulang. Hal itu menyurut kemarahannya dan menghancurkan perasaannya.
In her first year of marriage, her husband had come home and talked to her about having an affair. And I think it crushed her deeply.
I was very much in love with my husband from the time he was my boyfriend through when he was my husband. And he had an affair. And when that happened, I was devastated. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought that I wasn't good enough. One night I went to bed and I was expecting him to come home. And when I woke the next morning, he wasn't there. He was out with a friend of his. And he had been drinking, so he decided to stay at his house. And it turns out that that wasn't what happened.
What did happen?
He had met someone and he had stayed with her the night.
Was he sorry? Was it a fight? What happened?
I was very angry and I was very hurt.
Did it change the marriage?
Well, I believe it made me less trustworthy. It had an effect on my self-esteem. I had thought originally that it was just, he and I. And now I realized that someone could come between that. And I was scared of that.
When he cheated on her, it obviously broke her heart and changed her, changed the marriage. That's the turning point in this story.
Suatu malam pada 1 Mei 1990, setibanya Pam di kondominiumnya sekitar jam 10 malam setelah ia selesai rapat dewan di sekolah, ia terkejut mengetahui pintu depan kondominiumnya yang tak terkunci. Saat ia membukakan pintu, ia menemukan suaminya tak sadarkan diri tergeletak di lantai. Pam mulai menjerit histeris dan bergegas pergi keluar menggedor pintu rumah tetangganya untuk meminta pertolongan. Lantas tetangganya segera menghubungi 911 setelah melihat Pam kebingungan sambil menangis dan histeris mengkhawatirkan suaminya, Greg.
She had arrived at her home and began screaming that there was something wrong with her husband.
Yes, emergency in 4E, Missed Summer Hill condominium. There's someone passed out. I don't know, a girl is hysterical in here. She just ran over. Her husband is passed out.
The telephone calls that came to the Dari Police Department all came from neighbors who heard her screaming and yelling.
When I got home, the door was open. It was closed, but it was not locked. So I didn't think too much of it because I just went, he was supposed to be there. So when I went in and I pushed the door open, I just saw him laying there. But I didn't know that he was dead, but I called his name. He didn't respond. And just real fast in a second of looking up and looking around, it was obvious that somebody had broken into the condo. There was stuff all over the place. He was there. There was a candlestick next to his head. So I thought he had got hit or something. So I went to the neighbors and told them to come help. Something was wrong with him because I wasn't sure if somebody was still in the house.
Pam called the house and she was hysterical and she screamed into the phone, "Mom, come quick, Greg's dead." And inside I was trembling and I thought, well, maybe there's been an accident.
Pam Smart found his body. He was in the entranceway to his condominium. He was sprawled out on the ground.
The first thing that we noticed was the body of the victim, Gregory Smart. There appeared to be a blue towel wrapped around his head.
He's got a bullet wound in the back of his head. This looks like a mob hit. This is an execution.
Right away, police had no idea who could be responsible.
In this case, here's this young man at the beginning of his life and career in insurance. He's not married a year yet to a lovely young woman, and he's dead. The police were groping for leads at the time.
Polisi mengira bahwa itu peristiwa kejahatan perampokan. Namun setelah digeledah, ternyata tidak ada banyak barang yang hilang. Dompet beserta isinya pun masih ada dalam saku pakaian kerja Greg yang ia kenakan saat itu. Hanya beberapa potongan kecil perhiasan yang hilang. Sementara keadaan ruangan banyak barang yang berpindah dan tergeletak di lantai, serta bantal yang telah dirobek. Polisi pun tampak bingung karena pencuri di wilayahnya biasanya tidak pernah menggunakan senjata api dan tidak melakukan konfrontasi sama sekali. Dan yang paling mengherankan adalah tidak ada paksaan masuk, baik di pintu depan maupun pintu belakang. Sama sekali tidak ada tanda-tanda seseorang telah merusak pintu masuk.
This is not a usual burglary. Usually, burglars in this region don't carry firearms or guns. They're not planning on any kind of confrontation at all.
There was no forced entry at the front door or the back door. No signs, no disturbances of someone breaking in.
Something just doesn't seem right here.
The front door was unlocked half the time. I lived in a place that was no crime. It was just, that's how we live.
Mendengar kejadian tersebut, Dean Smart, adik dari Gregory Smart, juga segera datang ke lokasi kejadian.
And there was Pam. And I remember her sitting by the far window, and she just kept asking repeatedly, where is Halen? Halen was their little Shih Tzu dog that they named after Van Halen. Where is Halen? Where is Halen? Give me Halen, give me Halen. And I just kept remembering, thinking to myself, how can you sit there and ask about the stupid dog?
Saat pemakaman Greg, Pam nampak sangat bersedih. Ia tak henti-hentinya menangis begitu kencang, didampingi kedua orang tuanya yang berusaha menenangkannya. Begitupun orang tua Greg yang begitu terguncang dan hancur atas apa yang telah menimpa putranya.
And yesterday I went out to the cemetery, and that's kind of, when it really hit me that he won't ever come back.
What happened to Greg is the most horrible thing I've ever gone through in my life. And I'm still haunted every day by memories of what must have happened to him inside our house before he was killed. I keep thinking of how afraid he must have been and how senseless this whole tragedy was. A lot of times I still can't even believe that he's gone.
And that's Greg.
He's gone forever.
And he'll never be back.
We can't sleep. I don't want to eat. I don't feel there's much left in my life. All I want is the people who did this sent to jail forever. Sent to jail forever.
Kemudian polisi menemukan rokok ganja di mobil Greg. Mereka mulai menduga bahwa pembunuhan Greg mungkin berkaitan dengan pengedar narkoba. Atau mungkin ada permasalahan judi dengan mafia terkait hutang judi, di mana Greg dan Pam sering menghabiskan waktu di tempat judi di Atlantic City. Lalu desas-desus Greg terlibat transaksi obat larang dan mafia judi pun mulai beredar.
They found a marijuana cigarette, a reefer in his car. So they think, well, maybe there's drugs involved. Dead end.
The next lead is that Greg might have had a gambling problem. They search phone records and they find that he had been calling a gambling service to go to Atlantic City. Maybe he owed somebody money. Again, dead end. Nothing there.
So every single lead that we got, all of them led to dead ends.
Namun setelah diselidiki oleh polisi, mereka tidak menemukan petunjuk apapun. Polisi justru mencium hal yang janggal pada Pam. Saat Pam melakukan wawancara untuk pertama kalinya di televisi pada 7 Mei 1990. Saat wawancara pertama kalinya di televisi itu, penampilan Pam benar-benar berubah. Ia sama sekali tidak terlihat seperti seorang janda yang ditinggal suaminya yang meninggal karena dibunuh. Padahal kejadian itu belum genap 1 minggu. Pam terlihat sangat santai. Tak ada raut wajah yang menyimpan kesedihan. Ia tampil prima, memakai pakaian bagus, memakai make up sempurna, dan rambut tertata. Ia berbicara begitu dingin sambil mengelus-elus anjing kesayangannya, Helen, yang berada di pangkuannya selama sesi wawancara.
Well, I wasn't very emotional. I think I was in shock.
We usually don't like to bring animals, dogs, in your interview shot, but Pam invited Halen to come over. It's this little fuzzy dog, and we did the whole interview with Halen sitting right there next to us. She named her dog Halen because she was a Van Halen maniac.
Beberapa hari setelah pembunuhan Greg, sekelompok siswa remaja ramai memperbincangkan tentang pembunuhan tersebut. Lalu pada 10 Juni 1990, terobosan besar bagi pihak kepolisian datang sekitar 6 minggu setelah kejadian. seorang pria dewasa tiba-tiba mendatangi kantor polisi, namun bukan kantor polisi di Dari, New Hampshire, melainkan kantor polisi Seabrook, sekitar 45 miles jauhnya dari Dari, New Hampshire, daerah di mana pembunuhan Greg terjadi. Pria itu membawa senjata revolver kaliber 38. Dia mengatakan bahwa senjata itu adalah miliknya, dan kemungkinan senjata itu digunakan dalam pembunuhan Greg. Pria itu berkata bahwa teman putranya, seorang remaja bernama Ralph Welch, telah memberitahunya bahwa kemungkinan senjata itu digunakan untuk membunuh Greg Smart setelah Ralph mendengar teman-temannya membicarakan tentang pembunuhan Greg secara tak sengaja.
And he proceeds to tell the investigators that he had this gun put away in his house, and when he went to retrieve it, it looked like it had been freshly cleaned, and he knew he had not cleaned it. So how did this happen?
The man tells police that his son's friend, a teenager by the name of Ralph Welch, told him that the gun may have been used to kill Greg Smart.
Polisi lalu mengambil senjatanya untuk melakukan uji balistik, dan ternyata hasil tes tersebut menunjukkan kecocokan bahwa senjata itu adalah senjata yang digunakan untuk membunuh Gregory Smart dan menjadi bukti fisik. Itu menjadi terobosan besar bagi penyelidik kepolisian. Di hari yang sama, polisi membawa Ralph Welch menuju ruang interogasi untuk dimintai keterangan yang direkam dalam video.
Okay, it's June 10th and it's 15:24 hours by my watch. I'm Detective Barry Cherowitz, and with me is Ralph Welch. He told you the story about what? About how what happened?
He told me how they did it.
How they did it? What?
Killed Greg Smart.
Did they tell you anything else about it?
They're supposed to be getting some insurance money or something.
Yeah, $500. Is that what Pam was paying them, or?
That's what they said she was going to pay.
And you're talking about Pam. Who's Pam?
The guy's wife.
Okay, Pam Smart.
Untuk sobat semua, sebelum lanjut ada baiknya untuk mengklik terlebih dahulu tombol like, share, dan subscribe, serta tombol notifikasinya, agar tak ketinggalan update kisah nyata tak biasa dari K-Channel selanjutnya. Dan di ruang interogasi ini, Ralph menceritakan semua informasi yang ia ketahui terkait pembunuhan Greg yang melibatkan teman-temannya, yang ia sebut adalah Billy Flynn, Pete Randall, dan Vance Latin Jr. Vance adalah putra dari pria yang menyerahkan pistol revolver kaliber 38 pada polisi. Yang paling mengejutkan polisi, 3 remaja itu adalah siswa-siswa pelajar SMA Winnicott. Namun yang menjadi pertanyaan adalah apa motif mereka melakukannya. Ralph Welch adalah orang pertama yang menyebut nama Pamela Smart, yang kemudian menjadi petunjuk polisi untuk melakukan penyelidikan lebih dalam. Dan nampaknya polisi telah memiliki dugaan bahwa pembunuhan itu melibatkan Pamela Smart, istri dari korban pembunuhan Gregory Smart, karena polisi sendiri sebelumnya telah memperhatikan Pam yang bertingkah agak aneh.
And implicates Pamela Smart in her husband's murder. Yet it comes as no surprise to police, who already think that Pam has been acting bizarrely from the moment they started talking to her.
We met with her in an interview room, and she began immediately to tell us when she opened up the door, she saw that this must have been a burglary because there were speakers off the stand. It seemed kind of strange that she had keyed in on speakers missing from a stand. It seemed at the time that her focus should have been on her husband who was laying there.
Police noticed that Pam didn't seem to be very emotional when they finally got a chance to interview her just hours after her husband had been murdered.
Sejak saat itu Pam menjadi orang yang paling disoroti, terutama saat sesi wawancara di televisi untuk pertama kalinya, di mana ia sama sekali tak terlihat seperti seorang istri yang tengah bersedih atas tewasnya sang suami karena pembunuhan. Padahal belum genap 1 minggu pembunuhan itu terjadi, ia juga mengungkapkan kata-kata yang cukup janggal atas kematian suaminya. Dan secara tidak langsung, Ia juga memberikan penegasan bahwa pembunuhan suaminya murni karena perampokan.
At the beginning of that interview, everything seemed, fine. And then she just said a few things that were completely strange.
And I feel like if this happened at any point in Greg's life, it wouldn't be fair then. It wouldn't make sense then. It's just an awful tragedy. And now, there's no better time in his life for this to happen.
Instead of thinking like a widow, she's thinking like a producer of this story. And that's pretty bizarre. My law enforcement friends told me that after I interviewed Pam Smart, that she became even more of a prominent suspect in their eyes because of what she said in that interview. And they said specifically, she talked about things that she couldn't have known about.
It just seems to have been a situation where Greg didn't know what was happening.
She knew critical factors about what that crime scene looked like. How could she talk about what this apartment looked like when she wasn't allowed in there? And I expected that she would be breaking down, and yet that emotion never came.
One of the things that really stood out for people was the fact that the back door was unlocked. That the boys had said, she said she'd leave the back door unlocked. And what are the odds that their back door happened to be unlocked if they normally locked it on the day that these kids combined decided to burglarize?
Dan hal yang janggal selanjutnya, Pam mengaku ia terpaksa melakukan wawancara pertama kalinya itu karena ia dan ibunya terus-terusan dihubungi oleh reporter TV Bill Spencer untuk memintai komentarnya tentang Greg yang terlibat judi dengan mafia di Atlantic City. Namun reporter itu justru menjelaskan hal yang sebaliknya, bahwa Pam lah yang pertama kali menghubunginya. Dan hal ini memunculkan banyak anggapan bahwa Pam Smart ingin menarik perhatian media terhadapnya. Ia ingin tampil di televisi sebagai istri yang tegar dari suaminya yang tewas akibat pembunuhan oleh perampok.
You gave an interview to the local TV station pretty soon afterwards. Why did you do that? What were you thinking?
He kept calling my mom and myself and saying that they had heard rumors that Greg was a drug dealer and that he was killed over drugs and all this big mess, that he owed people money and stuff that just wasn't even true, and that they were going to go put that on the news if I didn't go on and say something to the contrary.
Somebody says, "Hey, Bill, you got a phone, Pamela Smart." And I was like, get out of here. I'm not going to fall for that one. It was her. So in the first seconds of my conversation with Pam, she just told me, she said, I really like the way you have been covering the story. You've talked a lot about Greg and his life, and this was not a drug deal. This was a burglary. I just respect the way that you have covered this so far.
What made this case so fascinating was that Pam Smart initially sought media attention and played the role of the grieving spouse whose husband was killed.
So this wasn't a situation where you thought, I can be on TV?
Absolutely not. I mean, this wasn't something you would want to be on TV for. This is a tragedy.
Polisi tidak mempercayai Pamela Smart karena mereka berpikir banyak kecurigaan terhadapnya, walaupun belum ada temuan bukti yang jelas. Polisi baru memiliki rekaman video keterangan dari siswa pelajar Ralph Wedge yang mengatakan Pam menawarkan masing-masing $500 untuk membunuh suaminya, Greg, pada 3 remaja siswa-siswa pelajar SMA Winnekannet.
So, who do you believe?
The police definitely don't believe Pam Smart. There's a whole lot of smoke, but no fire yet. They have the videotaped interview from a high school kid who said she offered $500 for murder. They find her interview peculiar, but none of this adds up to murder until they make a stunning connection.
Dan ternyata 3 pelajar SMA ini adalah siswa-siswa di sekolah yang sama di mana Pam bekerja. Dan dari sinilah polisi mendapatkan petunjuk luar biasa yang mengkaitkan Pam dengan 3 remaja itu. Billy Flint, Pete Randall, dan Vance Latim Jr. Mereka bertiga adalah sahabat dekat. Bahkan di sekolahnya, Mereka dikenal sebagai Three Musketeers karena trio ini diketahui sangat loyal satu sama lain. Pam pertama kali bertemu Billy Flynn pada saat Billy berusia 15 tahun dalam sebuah forum untuk membantu permasalahan remaja di sekolah ini. Billy dan teman-temannya yang berasal dari kota kecil Seabrook kemudian menjadi sangat dekat dengan Pam. Karena para remaja ini menganggap Pam bagaikan putri peri yang hadir dalam kehidupan mereka. Pam Smart yang telah lama tinggal di Florida, cantik, cerdas, banyak dikagumi, dan sangat menyukai musik rock atau sejenis musik heavy metal, cukup membuat bangga para remaja ini untuk bergaul lebih dekat dengan Pam. Apalagi Pam sebagai penggemar berat Van Halen yang sempat menunjukkan foto dirinya dengan gitaris Van Halen pada mereka, menambah ketertarikan dan kekaguman para remaja ini terhadap Pam, yang sama-sama menyukai Van Halen, khususnya Billy Flynn, di mana ia bermain gitar dan bercita-cita menjadi musisi rock. Billy mulai sering mengunjungi kantor Pam yang sesekali ditemani dua sahabatnya. Dan begitupun salah satu teman Billy yang merupakan siswi SMA Winnicott bernama Cecilia Pierce yang magang bekerja di kantor Pam menjadi sahabat dekat Pam. Kedekatannya bagaikan kakak beradik. Dan mereka semua sering bergaul bersama dan pergi bersama ke beberapa tempat untuk sekedar bersenang-senang. Hubungan Pam dan Billy semakin dekat pada saat pembuatan proyek iklan Orange Juice untuk mengikuti sebuah kontes iklan yang berhadiah wisata perjalanan ke Disneyland. Di mana dalam proyek pembuatan iklan ini, Pam menjadi sutradaranya. Sementara Billy, ia menjadi kameramen dan membuat lagu untuk iklannya. Pada bulan Februari, Pam dan Billy mulai sangat dekat. Pam menceritakan hubungan dengan suaminya yang tidak rukun dan mengatakan bahwa Greg tidak memperlakukannya dengan baik. Bahkan dia memamerkan memar di tubuhnya akibat perlakuan Greg. Di sisi lain, perasaan Billy bercampur antara tak percaya, senang, dan bingung bahwa wanita yang dia kagumi ternyata menyukainya dan benar-benar tertarik padanya. Dari sinilah hubungan Pam dan Billy menjadi sangat dekat sebagai pasangan kekasih dalam ikatan cinta terlarang yang membara. Tak hanya memenuhi kasih dan kemesraan, Pam sering mengirimkan foto-foto pose seksi dirinya pada Billy, hingga berhubungan intim di atas tempat tidur di kamar Pam dan suaminya, Greg.
And she's beautiful, she's intelligent, she's an adult. And she likes me.
When did you start realizing that you had gotten in too deep?
After the relationship went to a physical level.
And let's be clear, did you have real feelings for him?
I did. I know people would like to think that I didn't, but I did. And believe me, if I didn't, I would be happy to say that I didn't. But I did.
So why him?
He was somebody who was thoughtful, and he was somebody who was very kind, and I was attracted to that or drawn to that.
Were you in love with him?
I thought I was back in my 22-year-old mind. I did. He was just turning 16.
When you look back on that, are you ashamed of that?
Definitely, totally. Yes.
The cops soon discovered that Pamela Smart has been having an ongoing illicit affair with her teenage student, Billy Flynn.
Setelah polisi mendapatkan petunjuk tentang 3 remaja yang terlibat dalam pembunuhan Greg, dari keterangan Ralph Welch, lantas polisi segera menangkap Billy dan teman-temannya. Penangkapan 3 remaja ini menjadi berita utama di berbagai media. Dan hasil interogasi polisi pada 3 remaja ini sesuai dengan keterangan yang didapatkan dari Ralph Welch sebelumnya tentang pembunuhan Greg Smart yang telah direncanakan. Dan ternyata dalam aksinya itu melibatkan 4 orang, Billy, Pete, Vance, dan Raymond Fowler, di mana peran Raymond saat itu sebagai pengemudi mobil yang menunggu di mobil bersama Vance untuk membawa Billy dan Pete melarikan diri setelah mereka melakukan aksinya. Billy, Pete, dan Vance diinterogasi secara terpisah. Mereka memberikan keterangan yang sama bahwa pembunuhan Greg itu memang direncanakan atas suruhan dari Pamela Smart. Bahkan mobil yang dipakai untuk melarikan diri dibantu oleh Pamela. Pam mengantar Billy dan teman-temannya ke Massachusetts untuk mengambil mobil di rumah nenek Vance.
You actually went to Massachusetts with the boys to pick up a car, correct?
Right.
What was that about?
On numerous occasions, okay, one of which happened to be the same day. But they didn't have a car, and the one who had a driver's license, Vance Latimer, used to use his grandmother's car. So anywhere they needed to go, I was always driving people all over the place, not just them, because they had no car. Or I would drive him to his grandmother's house to pick up the car, which he would keep for the weekend sometimes. It was kind of like, hey, we don't have a car, Pam has a car, if we need to go get concert tickets, we need to go to the mall, we need to go here, can you drive us here? And I was like, yeah, okay, drop you off, drive you here, whatever. So, yeah, I drove them around a lot.
Dan di luar dugaan, polisi tiba-tiba menerima panggilan telepon yang mengatakan ia mengetahui tentang dalang dari pembunuhan itu, yakni Pamela Smart. Dan orang yang memberitahu polisi di telepon adalah siswi SMA Winnicott yang sekaligus sahabat Pamela Smart dan bekerja magang di kantor Pam, yakni Cecilia Pierce. Polisi pun segera memintai keterangan Cecilia di ruang interogasi. Dari semua keterangan yang didapatkan, polisi membutuhkan tambahan bukti yang kuat. Lalu polisi menggunakan Cecilia untuk menyelidiki Pam dengan memasang alat penyadap pada Cecilia untuk memancing percakapan tentang pembunuhan Greg. Dan hasilnya cukup mengejutkan dan cukup alasan bagi polisi untuk segera mendatangi Pamela Smart pada 1 Agustus 1990 di kantor Pamela Smart yang berada di lingkungan SMA Winnicott. Saat polisi bertemu dengan Pam, mereka mengatakan bahwa mereka memiliki kabar baik dan kabar buruk untuk Pam. Kabar baiknya adalah bahwa polisi telah berhasil mendapatkan pembunuh suaminya. Dan kabar buruknya adalah Pamela Smart Anda ditangkap.
I knew I was arrested for something to do with the case, but this is like a formality or whatever they're doing. This is stupid. I felt horrible. I felt totally guilty for having been involved in the relationship with him. I felt like it was my fault Greg was dead, even though I know I didn't ask him to kill Greg or want him to kill Greg. I felt completely responsible, and I felt afraid and alone. I was scared, not scared that I'm going to be arrested, but scared that this really happened, and that it's not just the tragedy of him dying anymore. Now it looks like it's because of some choice I'm...
Cecilia Pierce.
Yes.
She was wired when she was talking to you. You said something that sounded like, if you tell the truth, we're all going to jail.
Yeah.
If you tell the truth, you are probably going to be arrested, and even if you're not arrested, you're going to have to go and you're going to have to send Bill, you're going to have to send me, you're going to have to send JR, and you're going to have to send me to the slammer for the rest of our entire life.
It was clear nobody would be saying things like that if they weren't involved. And she was basically trying to convince Cecilia Pierce not to go to the police, to keep quiet, and saying if everybody else keeps quiet, we'll be fine. So this was just another strong piece of evidence with all the other evidence in the case.
Sejak saat itu, kasus ini menjadi berita utama di setiap media di seluruh Amerika dan juga dari luar negeri. Para awak media memberitakannya setiap hari, setiap waktu, dan disebut sebagai berita heboh, perselingkuhan tragis paling sensasional yang disorot nasional, di mana belum pernah terjadi sebelumnya. Hingga menginspirasi banyak buku-buku dan film TV, serta film kelas Hollywood, blockbuster, yang dibintangi oleh Nicole Kidman.
Pamela was really the golden girl of true crime in the 90s. It was a story we had never really heard before.
Dan kasus ini pun menjadi kasus persidangan pertama kalinya disiarkan secara langsung di televisi selama 2 minggu dan menjadi berita sensasi berbagai media setiap harinya.
Reality TV of court cases being covered completely. It was the first one of its kind, before OJ, before any of these other high-profile cases. This is the case that started all of it.
Dalam persidangan, pengacara Pamela Smart menuduh 3 remaja itu mencoba menjebak Pamela Smart untuk menyelamatkan diri mereka sendiri. Namun fakta-fakta persidangan cukup mengejutkan dan memberatkan Pamela Smart, termasuk Billy yang memberikan kesaksiannya tepat di hari ulang tahunnya pada 13 Maret 1991, yang terlihat terus menangis seperti ia benar-benar menyesal atas perbuatannya.
According to the kids that I talked to, not just one, but several kids, they're all saying that she, plotted this whole thing out. How to commit the murder, what weapon to use, what to wear.
When you take away the little teardrops from Billy Flynn and the references that they're kids on the stand, frankly, that case is like any other case. And as far as we were concerned, they were individuals trying to save their own butts, testifying like, trained animals at a circus in order to get what they needed in order to save themselves.
At first, Bill couldn't believe it. He didn't believe she was serious. He didn't know what to think. He was confused and a little thrilled that this woman that he had come to admire and like so much, and working with her, would actually be interested in him.
The week before Greg's death,
So what happened on Tuesday night?
Bill came over and we rented some movies.
Yes, I wanted him to come over.
And then Bill and Pam went upstairs and I stayed downstairs and watched another movie.
And what happened?
I went upstairs and I saw Bill and Pam having sex.
After the movie was over, we went upstairs.
Who went upstairs?
Pam and myself.
What happened after that?
We had sex.
Well, I didn't set out to have an affair with him, but I did.
You would have sex with them?
Yes.
Pam and Bill naked.
And where were they?
On the floor.
In what room?
In Greg's bedroom.
What kind of position were they in?
Pam was on top of Bill. She said that she had a choice, either to kill Greg or get a divorce.
Now, after she told, what did you say to that?
I told her to get a divorce.
She said to you why she couldn't get a divorce?
Because Greg would take the dog and the furniture and she wouldn't have any money and she wouldn't have a place to live.
One weekend when Greg was away, the defendant had Bill stay over. And on the way home, as she was returning him to his mother's house in Seabrook, she said to him that they could no longer see each other anymore, that Greg was getting suspicious of her workplace. That was the first time the defendant had sexual intercourse with Bill. On the way home, she was unequivocal. She said that the only solution was to kill Gregory Smart.
There was one time when we were in my car, and I had told him that I didn't want to have a relationship with him anymore, and he started crying, and he said that he couldn't live without me.
Were there any discussions about murdering your husband on right?
No, there were not.
She said, because, I can't go on seeing you like this and not, being able to stay with you and having to go home to him because of the way he treats me.
You thought about her all the time?
Yes.
Would that help fuel your hatred and your anger too?
I wanted to be with Pam, yes. I didn't want to kill Greg either, though.
The only reason that you killed Greg is because you loved Pam. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's because Pam told me to, and I loved Pam.
I always thought that there's probably nothing more powerful to a 15 or 16-year-old boy than sex. And that was a very powerful thing she was doing, whether she was aware of it or not. I can't imagine he could think straight with what was going on with that.
I think Bill was clearly a very sensitive, somewhat emotional kid who really thought he was in love with Pam Smart and really thought he had to save Pam Smart. Do you want this jury to understand that Bill Flynn decided to kill your husband because you broke up with him?
I want this jury to understand the truth.
Is that what you're claiming the truth is?
I don't know why Bill Flynn killed Greg. I can just come in here and give my testimony.
And she told me that we'd go in through the bulkhead. They should leave the bulkhead and the back doors unlocked. We could go in, make sure we didn't turn on any lights, not to hurt a dog, and that we could ransack the apartment, the condo, take what we wanted, and wait for Greg to come home, and when Greg came home, we would have killed him.
Just that they were going to use a gun, make it look like a burglary. She told Bill not to kill Greg in front of the dog because it would traumatize the dog.
Greg couldn't see the gun. He held the gun a couple inches from his head. He said, "Forgive me, God," and shot him.
Who said forgive me, God?
Bill.
What happened after that?
I took the gun. Out of my pocket.
Is this the gun you had at that time?
Yes, it is.
After you pointed the gun at his head, what'd you do?
I said, God, forgive me. I pulled the trigger.
She'd ask, whether she should scream, run house to house, or just run and call the police.
What was the plan after the murder of Gregory Smart between you and the defendant?
Well, Pam was going to get the insurance money, and she was going to buy a condo closer to me. So we could be together.
And what did you know about the insurance money?
She said she couldn't believe it, that there was 2 insurance policies, one for $90, one for $50, so it was $140,000.
Insurance?
Yeah, life insurance.
I knew he had some life insurance, but I had no idea how much.
He was crying the whole time, and he seemed like he was genuinely remorseful. It was pretty heart-rending testimony. I think it really affected probably everybody who was in that courtroom.
Setelah 2 minggu persidangan yang disiarkan di televisi, akhirnya pada 22 Maret 1991, Pamela Smart dinyatakan bersalah atas kejahatannya sebagai kaki tangan pembunuhan tingkat pertama, konspirasi dan perusakan saksi. Ia dijatuhi hukuman penjara seumur hidup tanpa mendapatkan pembebasan bersyarat. Walaupun dalam persidangan, ia tak tergoyahkan bahwa dirinya tak bersalah. Sementara Billy Flynn dijatuhi hukuman penjara 25 tahun, Pete Randall dihukum 25 tahun penjara, Ser3T dihukum 15 tahun penjara, dan Raymond Fowler dijatuhi hukuman 12 tahun penjara.
How say you, is the defendant guilty or not guilty of the offense charge?
Guilty.
She was such a young woman when all of this started, and is set to spend the rest of her life in that jail cell and die in that jail cell.
You have to ask yourself, for someone who didn't pull the trigger, should she be in prison for longer than the boys? Yes, they were young, but did they know wrong from right? They probably knew you don't shoot people. So I think the question is whether she should have got the sentence she got.
I'm in a mind frame of a person who's not guilty, so I'm not thinking I'm going to be tried, convicted, sentenced to life in prison. I wasn't afraid because I knew I hadn't done anything.
It's not just their cooperation. They were young teenage kids who were taken advantage of.
They were not Pam's victims. She was their victims. They put her in this prison. They got themselves out on her life.
Berita persidangan yang diikuti publik selama 2 pekan itu telah memunculkan banyak anggapan bahwa Pamela Smart telah memanfaatkan siswa-siswa remaja untuk membunuh Greg melalui rayuan seksualitasnya pada Billy. Pada tahun 2005, Raymond Fowler dibebaskan. Dan pada bulan Juni tahun 2015, Ser3T dibebaskan. Dan masih di bulan dan tahun yang sama, pada Juni 2015, Billy Flynn dan Pete Randall dibebaskan dengan pembebasan bersyarat. Kasus Pamela Smart yang sensasional sebagai makanan sehari-hari berita utama semua media telah membuatnya menjadi wanita yang paling dikenal sekaligus paling banyak dibenci. Termasuk dibenci oleh sejumlah narapidana yang melakukan kekerasan fisik terhadapnya di awal-awal tahun ia berada di penjara. Sehingga ia terluka parah dan harus dioperasi di bagian wajahnya. Ia juga mengalami pelecehan seksual yang dilakukan oleh sipir penjara, di mana Pam disuruh untuk difoto dengan pose dan pakaian seksi yang kemudian disebarkan.
When she first came to Bedford in '93, she was probably not only the most hated woman in the prison, but probably the most hated woman in the world.
How do you protect yourself, especially being high profile?
I was assaulted by 2 other inmates, and I was severely injured. I had a blowout fracture to my left orbit in my face, and I had to have surgery on my face, so I have no feeling in the left side of my face. And I have to take medication every day now because it's very painful still.
In the prison has not been kind to her. She's been assaulted to the point that her face has been broken up and operated on. She's been sexually assaulted by the correctional officers that were there to protect her.
Dan nasib Pamela Smart kini, ia masih mendekam dalam penjara selama 3 dekade ini. Ia berada di fasilitas pemasyarakatan Bedford Hills di Westchester County, New York. Selama dalam penjara, ia telah menyelesaikan 2 gelar masternya dan mengikuti kegiatan seni peran bersama para narapidana lainnya. Ia juga masih berjuang untuk pengajuan pembebasan bersyarat yang dibantu oleh pengacara dan teman-temannya, termasuk membuat petisi menuntut keadilan bagi Pamela Smart yang dianggap hukuman bagi Pamela Smart sangat tidak adil. Begitupun sang ibu, Linda Wodges, yang akan terus berjuang untuk membebaskan putrinya sampai akhir hayatnya. Pamela Smart masih bersikukuh bahwa dirinya tidak bersalah.
So just to be clear, did you mastermind the murder against your husband?
Absolutely not. No, I did not. It's been, almost 3 decades, and it hurts.
By having this relationship, does that make me responsible for his death in my mind? Yeah, a lot. Am I legally culpable? No.
That's an odd sentence for her to get life in prison when she wasn't even there.
Why would you give a pardon to someone who still denies she had any responsibility in the death of her husband?
The whole Pam Smart case is one big tragic fairy tale.
Yes, he did. I was totally devastated. I did not expect that. I really loved him, and I thought, I was going to spend the rest of my life with him, and then he went and committed this indiscretion.
Even at this point, when you were having an affair with Billy, were you thinking that you could still save your marriage and stay married for the rest of your life? Or did you think the marriage was over?
No, I was still thinking I could stay married. Yeah. It was kind of like, hey, this is just a little problem, and it's not going to be something who thinks that something is going to turn so catastrophic. I was not guilty. I am not guilty. And at the time, I believed in the justice system. I was very naive. I thought that you don't go to jail if you're not guilty. And I was trusting in that. I had no idea really what I was up against, how bad it was going to be.
So what is the best argument for parole for you?
Well, the best argument is that I'm not guilty of the crime that I'm in prison for. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to convince everybody of that.
What is your next step in life in general to get yourself out of here?
Pray. Because I think I need a miracle.
Pada 6 April 2022 diberitakan bahwa Pamela Smart yang berusia 54 tahun telah mengajukan banding selama beberapa dekade. Kini ia mengaku bersalah, namun permintaannya ditolak dalam pemungutan suara oleh Dewan Negara bagian New Hampshire. Menurut Jaksa Agung Jeffrey Strelson, bahwa Pamela Smart telah menceritakan narasi palsu selama lebih dari 30 tahun. Dan inilah sejumlah referensi dalam kisah nyata dokumenter K-Channel kali ini. Bagaimana menurut Sobat K semua? Silakan berbagi pendapatnya yang tentunya dengan sikap bijak dalam menerima berita dari berbagai media baik dari luar negeri maupun dalam negeri ke kolom komentar. Dan jangan lewatkan berita lainnya yang berbeda selanjutnya di K-Channel.